Well, welcome back or welcome to Ted and Yogi's Pac-12 Adventure with Ted Robinson. I'm Yogi Roth, of course, joined by Michael Molinari, and it is Tuesday. It is Tuesday evening of the 2nd of November, and you know what that means. The first CFP ranking has come out. The Oregon Ducks are ranked number 4, the lone Pac-12 team ranked in the initial rankings, but there's a lot of storylines to dive into. Of course, we're presented by our friends at SportsBook. I don't know how many people would have bet on Oregon being top 4 ahead of Ohio State or Cincinnati. Fellas, I'd love your initial reactions, and I'm obviously going to give mine as we dive into this bad boy.
Win for college football. Games matter, period. Games matter. And the other thing that surprised me when I didn't watch the whole thing, I just skimmed it, and I saw that I didn't realize there was such a difference in strength of schedule ranking between Oregon and Oregon State. That jumped out at me. But as long as that head-to-head, and I told you my 1993 scar, but I'm saying and I think you guys would agree with this. If somehow Ohio State and Oregon both end up as a one-loss team and Oregon and Ohio State is ranked ahead, then why would anybody play those kind of games in September? Why? And then college football loses. So that's where, to me, it's a victory.
Oregon reaping the reward of going and playing that game. And actually both of them, to Ohio State's credit, they were supposed to play the previous year, but that got canceled. So both teams, congratulations. Right now, Oregon reaping the benefit. And we're reaping the benefit of a podcast after dark, by the way. So thank you, CFP, for releasing late so we could do podcast after dark.
We have about as many people in the stands as they did at Stanford the other night, by the way.
Yes.
All right, Yog, fire away.
All right. So with that said, I got a little bit of a rant here, but in a good way, around the playoff. This playoff's been going on for a long time. And what they haven't changed is the description of what their criteria is. I'll read off the 4 main elements: championships won, strength of schedule, head-to-head, comparative outcome of common opponents. So they use those 4 elements when something's close. I believe, covering this thing since it started along with you guys, that it's been hit or miss in terms of when to use those elements, when not to. So I'll echo Ted, who's much better at economy of words than I am. Major win for college football. Here's why. We walked into the season with Oregon as an overwhelming favorite by the media to win the Pac-12 conference. We walked into the season with anybody east of the Rockies, west of the Rockies, south of the whatever, like all across college football, Oregon was a team. You could say whatever you want about the Pac-12, but from Feinbaum around the country, it was, yeah, Oregon's a real team. So to me, I'm glad that it wasn't like a shock. Like, oh my gosh, the Ducks in the Pac-12. Like, no, this team is loaded. With that said, some facts. They beat Ohio State on the road for the first time since anyone's gone to Ohio State and won on the road since 2017. A reminder, the game, and Ted knows this better than anybody, the game was at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, different for their body clock. They were without many starters, most notably the number 1 draft pick, we all presume, in Kayvon Thibodeau. Pause. Move on to their loss, because now we're going to talk about the Stanford game. Joe Moorhead eliminated due to an illness the morning of the game. I believe that offensive coordinators were 3 decisions. There's at least 1 decision, let alone 2 or 3. If he helps make, I think they win that game. They also benefited from an untimed down and a penalty that will go down in infamy of if you think it is or is not defensive holding. They also lost C.J. Verdell in that game and Kayvon Thibodeau on the final 11-page play drive where Stanford ended up tying the ball game. In addition, when they played Cal the next week, Joe Moorhead created the game plan, but was not with the team all week long. I found that out last week as I was part of the crew at the Pac-12 conference that presents to the committee. So we learned of that, and that was a big moment, an element to present because Oregon didn't look great in that game. The play call around them all week. So I say all that because I believe, to Ted's point of college football getting a win, so the committee looked at it and said, those are some facts. Those are some real things. Their all-conference center hasn't played the last couple games. They anticipated him playing the last 2 games. He hasn't done it. They've lost multiple players, and this team is getting stronger, and they have the best win in the country, in my opinion, this year, based on having to go on the road versus A&M winning the game against Alabama at home. Even Cincinnati over Notre Dame, I still think that Oregon going to Ohio State is a better win. Maybe not by much, but I still think it is. So with that said, I'm not blown away that Oregon's ranked where they are. I think when you sit back objectively, even working at the Pac-12, you say, yeah, when I hear all those things, it makes sense to me. And then you add in the eye test and how they played the last couple of weeks. So I'm happy where they are. And I think it's great for the league, obviously, where they're positioned with the teams that are behind them, knowing what everybody has over the last month of the season.
At least for a week, it's confirmation that that win for Oregon at Ohio State was the most important football win for the Pac-12 conference in years. And, as I've been very blunt before, you have to own your results. And the rest of the results in this conference this year were just not very good, sadly. And it's cost. And when you see the other teams that are in the top 25 of the CFP ranking, teams like Fresno State, San Diego State, two Mountain West teams in, only one Pac team, BYU in, which is 4-0 against the Pac. So you can't ignore that. You just can't. You have to own it. But for Oregon to get the cred for that win over Ohio State is massive. And now I'm going to say, because I think I've been as vocal as any of us about lack of national respect for the Pac, that if I'm sitting in Norman, Oklahoma right now, if I'm sitting in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and if I'm really sitting in Cincinnati, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. And that's going to be the challenge. Chris Peterson, who was on the Fox halftime this past Saturday, made a great point about Cincinnati. He said Cincinnati needs to be ranked second when this first poll came out, because there'll be some one-loss teams that we already know the Alabama rule. Alabama has to lose 3 times to be eliminated. That was proven again. They're second, right? They're second in the poll. It doesn't matter. They can lose again and they'll still make it. So that's going to be 2 spots, Georgia and Alabama. So everybody else we're talking about is fighting, in my personal view, for 2 spots. These other undefeated teams, I mean, if you have Wake Forest, and I understand people go Wake Forest, it's Power 5 league. If they run the table, are they going to get left out from a Power 5 league? Because you know what we'd be saying if it was a Pac-12 school that was in that spot.
I think you said it perfectly, Ted. And I think, again, you're making the argument for 8 or 12, but we'll leave that for where it may. Yogi, a positive rant. Only you're capable of that. So I'm very impressed with that.
Notice, Yogi, he didn't say I was capable.
No, we skipped that. But hats off to you, Yogi, Merton Hanks, and the Pac-12 presenting the case, because it looks like you guys made a difference. And I think Oregon deserves to be there, but I think they needed somebody to make their case, and it appeared you guys did a pretty good job of that. So hats off to you guys too.
And I do, and exactly, I'll second that, Yogi. Bravo to you and to the entire group. And I do have to believe that the way Oregon played Saturday helped, because it's sadly, we're back to an era that I thought we were done with in college football, where scores do matter. And I can't stand it. I don't think it's good for college football, but I believe it's impactful. And Oregon played a team they should beat, and they beat them pretty soundly. And I just watched the first half of the game, and it was a mismatch. That's a good thing for Oregon CFP presentation.
Style points.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Like this committee, it's 1 week, but I'm really a fan of how they've evaluated. And I get like how undefeated teams are frustrated in that regard. And I'm with you. If we were Wake Forest or Oklahoma, we'd be going crazy right now, coming from a Power 5 league. But I like the head-to-head thing, right? How it matters, Oklahoma State and Baylor. I like how it matters with Wisconsin and Iowa. I just like how it matters. I like how think of Mississippi State and Kentucky, right? It mattered, the head-to-head. How about Mike Leach? And I can't believe it after you watched them earlier in the season. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm just, who it did matter with, though? Penn State. I mean, this is back end stuff, and it's for the Big Ten, but Penn State was out.
Yeah.
They're in the AP poll. They're out of this, and Wisconsin is in. Penn State beat Wisconsin head-to-head in week 1 at Madison this year. So there's one exception to the head-to-head.
Well, and Michael said it before we came on the air, right? Bama A&M. That's also an exception. But with that said, what I, to your point of Penn State, to kind of Penn State and Fresno State flopping. I get the Wisconsin too. I think that's great for Oregon. So if you're a Duck
Yes.
fan, listen to this. This is what I've written down that you want. Guys, tack on things that I may miss. We want Oklahoma to lose because an undefeated Oklahoma is getting in the playoff, in my opinion. They haven't performed great in the playoff, but I would imagine if they can beat an OK State twice or whomever they would play in their title game, they'll have a chance to get in. I think you want Ohio State to continue to win because someone from the Big Ten is getting in. It might as well be, or at least all the way to the title game, a team that you beat. Michigan State and Ohio State play in a couple weeks, and of course the Michigan game. You want Fresno State and San Diego State to keep winning. That's only going to help you because Oregon's going to play Utah likely twice in 3 weeks, which is crazy, right? If you think about that. You want Utah to ball out. We'll get to them here in a minute. We want Oregon State to play well, and you want Washington State to continue to play well. Those are all the teams that you face because you're not going to have a ranked opponent. I think Utah, I'm going to guess here, they were 26 through 30. They had to be because I know as we present, like the context of Utah, if you look at how these other teams were ranked at the bottom in the bottom 5, like Pitt Panthers. I love Pitt. We just got rolled by Miami, who has what, 3 or 4 wins this year, right? So I would imagine Utah's in the dialogue somewhere. They need to go win, and that's going to have to be some of the narrative because that's how it's going to continue to grow. But overall, Oregon's in a really healthy spot if they continue to play. As they get healthier and get Alex Forsythe back, we anticipate this weekend they're starting all-conference center. They've got Mace Funa back, their linebacker. They're going to be in great position to make the playoff.
Can I ask you one question, Yogi, since you're more of an expert on this than Ted and I, for sure. Oregon wins out. Do you see a scenario where Oregon could win out and not make the playoff?
Yeah.
You do?
I can. I think if Oklahoma and Wake Forest were undefeated, and let's just say Ohio State had another loss along the way, because I'm with Ted on this of like, why do we have Power 5 leagues and we talk Power 5 football? If you're undefeated, you don't get in. And I get it. Like it's, and then you get in the debate, 4 best or 4 best bodies of work. I always hope that the committee is put in really precarious situations to see where they net out. I don't necessarily want that specific one, but I'd like to see some elements around there. But they're in a great position. But yeah, there's some ways where this could get wonky. And I think, Ted, if Bama lost to Georgia and had 2 losses, I think they'd be out like they were a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I
think
wish I
with
could agree
2.
with you, but I don't.
Yeah.
So number 2 and number 4 aren't
yeah.
as solid as they appear today. As there's a lot left.
And I don't think Michigan State, as Reese Davis pointed out, in the Nebraska game, I believe, they had more plays than yards in the second half when they played them. So I don't think Mel Tucker's team is like world beaters. I think they're just sexy and had an awesome quarter and a half. And I don't see them winning out the rest of the way, personally. I think they're like Mississippi State with Dan Mullen, what was it, 5-6 years ago when they were 2 or 3 early on. Like I don't see that with them. They got to play Penn State. They got to play Ohio State. It'd be nice, but I'm not convinced that they're that team for 4 quarters yet.
All right. So Michael, can I have a mini rant here?
Please.
Are you okay?
It's after dark, Ted.
So games this past Saturday, and I had a chance to watch it, which I'm really happy, just given our schedule and when our game in Berkeley. Michigan State, Michigan was the best college football game of this year by far so far. Not even seconds, not even close. The best college football game I've seen in probably the last 5 years. The level of play, the level of talent, the atmosphere, etc. The Big Ten East has these has slugfest now. They're all playing each other. So I want to get to the Michigan State, Michigan in a few minutes, but Alabama and Georgia. Do you know how many times they've played in the last 12 years in the regular season? Yogi did his homework. Good job, Yogi. That's why you're my man. That is an utter, from a college football standpoint, it's a disgrace. So the SEC can stand up on its haunches all they want. I know they have all the ammunition to do it. That's a joke. Those 2 teams have played in the regular season. I have it in front of me here. Since September of 2008, they have played in the regular season twice. That's a joke. Don't talk to me about your.
And one was in and one was in the pandemic where you only played
Yeah,
conference
last year.
games.
They played last year and they played in 2015. They have played other times in championships and bowl games, but in the regular season, twice. That's a joke. Okay, rant over. I love this
All right,
system.
before
I
we
Just
move
love
like in the
on-
game, we move on. We just ignore it and move on.
I know. When I do this during the game,
I'm with you, dude.
Yogi, you know this. When I do this during the game, I can't see Michael. So I can't see his reaction. That's why I love doing it now, because I can actually see him when he's ready to throw open his mouth when I go through these.
It's when he pushes the button and gets in my ear and says, "Hey, let's go back to the previous play."
Yep.
I agree. I co-sign all day long. I think, to put a bow on that, I think that our league eventually will get to 1 and 2 playing in a title game. I hope the Alliance follows suit in the ACC and Big Ten, and we'll see what happens with that, far off land known as the SEC as they continue to operate in their own world, what they end up doing with their super conference.
Okay, let me throw this out here to you guys. Pac-12 related. So I just said Michigan State, Michigan was an extraordinary football game. The ratings came out today. By far the highest rated college football game of 2021. Now there's still a month to go, so somebody may beat them. By far the highest rate. By far, it's by 2 million viewers, the highest rating. Well, I'm watching this Saturday morning without knowing that was going to be the rating, and I was already thinking this. And that when I saw that today, confirmed. Why can't the Pac, somebody forward think, somebody be creative, and take Wilner's idea and say, not only are we going to have a 9 a.m. game next year, but we're going to put maybe a rivalry game, a natural rivalry game like Michigan State, or a key rivalry matchup. Let's just throw hypothetical out there because they're not playing this year, Oregon, USC, where that's a hypothetical, but that's a big national rivalry. At 9 a.m., suck it up, guys. The window is established. It is a great college football window for national exposure, and the Pac-12 conference needs it. It just needs it. And when I see almost 10 million people watched the Michigan State game, and we have games on all Saturday in the Pac-12 that are in the witness protection program. Pick a good one, pick a gem, pick a couple of gems out. And it reinforced the fact that I had Tip Wilner, great call on the 9 a.m. kick.
Well, hat to you, because you've been talking that way for a while, Ted. To me, on that note, it'd have to be great games, right? To the one you just referenced, Imagine SC, because so the fans are like, let's ride. It's going to be fun. I think we're in a really fun stage of our league.
I think it's I don't think it's rivalry because you're going to get such pushback from fans. I think it's some of these potential alliance matchups when you've got Michigan coming out to play at Oregon, or for example, so you don't have the fan base as a. So that to me, the alliance game is the perfect 9 a.m. idea.
But I think it needs to be a conference game. And I agree with you, Michael. We all know that the natural rivalries in our conference all get played late in the year. So that will be a hard ask. One time, maybe. You also you're going to have to plan it before the season.
Yes.
So you can't do it on a 12-day pick.
Less pushback if it's already lined up and established well in advance.
Right. And so, you want to have the hard part for right now where the Pac is, I think we have 5 natural rivalries, is that going into 2022, it's hard to project one where both are going to be national powerhouses right now. USC is going to have a coaching change. That would be the best one to me, would be USC, UCLA. I don't have any idea if the schools would be willing to do it once, but USC is going to also be in a change. But that's why I came back to Oregon, USC. Something like that, where you're going to have national presence, national power, and you have to declare the game before the year for the fans. I understand that you can't do it on a 12, and for the teams, you can't do it on a 12-day window. But I just continue, as I was watching, sadly, Saturday. I mean, and I knew it was going to happen. We all knew it was going to happen. I'm watching games in Utah was great. The Utah atmosphere is great. They're credit to the Utes and their fans, but are there venues? And you're watching this supposedly. Our marketing people scream about Pac-12 after dark, and we have empty stands. It's not only not helpful, it's counterproductive to what the conference is trying to achieve.
Well,
All right.
We know the after dark's a money thing more than a fan thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I
we'll
know.
just say that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Yogi.
All right, so as we move on to the next topic, let me tell you a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with BetRivers yet, now is the time. They are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit, but what sets them apart is they require just one play through to turn your bonus into cash money. They have a new Rush Pay instant approval element to them, so withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and much more reliable than ever before. So here we are in November. CFP football is rolling. The stakes are high. Get in on the action. Go to betrivers.com today. Download the BetRivers iOS app. Of course, you must be 21 years or older. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, we're going to rip here because there is a lot to talk about. Let's just go to Oregon's game. A lot of noise. Oregon's been trending on Twitter for like 36 hours. And it was based on Jimmy Lake's comments in his press conference about do they recruit against Oregon? We know these two teams get after it, right? If you're a dog fan, you're going duck hunting. If you're a duck fan, you want to put it on them. We all remember Jake Browning with the point in Autzen when he was under Chris Peterson. I mean, this game has had amazing moments. You guys have probably been a part of it. I've never called that game or I've never even seen it in person. But it's a huge stage. I think it's a more competitive game than one might think based on the rivalry in this one. But I'm curious, like, what do you guys think with everything going on around Oregon today, and now they got to go to Seattle to play this one?
I'll go quick. If Jimmy Lake somehow pulls this off, no one's going to remember anything else that happened this season.
Yeah.
Not even the loss at the beginning of the year. So it's now, do I think they can? I don't think so. But anything's possible in this conference. We know that. So it's a heated rivalry, and they've turned up the temperature. And obviously, with Oregon in the top 4, the temperature's even higher. That's going to be trending on Twitter now. So I think it's going to be there's a huge stakes for this game now.
Yeah, I watched the second half of Washington's win against Stanford, and it's not a very pretty eyeball test. Washington's done it 2 weeks in a row. They've won road games 2 weeks in a row. And admittedly, not tough places to play on the road, not great teams they beat, but they still won games. And the one that surprises me is Sean McGrew. Now, we've seen Sean McGrew in the past, but they've had other running backs that always seem to take the first carries or the limelight. Now Sean McGrew's the guy. And that one really surprises me. And the other thing that you got to give Washington credit for, to me, at the end of the Stanford game, Stanford had the game. Stanford was 1 first down away from winning the game, and Washington's defense stopped them. And then got the ball back for a last-ditch drive and converted not just field goal, but touchdown to win the game. So, despite their rough start and some really rough losses, that team's hung together. So credit to the Huskies for that.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I look at, what must happen for UW to win, Dylan Morris has to play well. Like, they have to deal. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball at will. Like, they're going to have to get Cade Otton involved. He's an All-American. We love this guy at tight end. He won't be an All-American this year. We think he'll get drafted, and he's a true tight end in a league that is bringing that position back, as we've talked over the last couple of podcasts. Dylan's got a ball, straight up. Like, this will be an awesome first quarter, just like UCLA Oregon was. And then what happened? Oregon outscored them, was it 38-3 or whatever it was over the middle quarters. UW's their quarterback in this offense has to rise up, or they'll lose. And Oregon, it won't be blowout central early, but they're going to run the ball. Their defense will stop the run.
So Washington just ran for 220 against Stanford. You don't think that? I mean, I'm not saying they're going to run for 220 against Oregon, but could they run for 130 or 140 against Oregon?
I think they can. I mean, Arizona ran the ball at times against Oregon. Yeah. But Oregon's finally getting healthy. They got some of their guys back. Like, they'll be juiced up. We'll see what the UW offensive front looks like, right? It's gotten better, as you referenced. If they can run it decently, if they can run for $120, $130, and allow Dylan Morris to not get teed off on, they'll have a chance in the game. But they got to get going. This is not a sleepy game. And they got to be able to handle it, because Husky Stadium will be as crazy as it's been.
Hope so.
Since the beginning of the Montana game.
Yeah.
So.
And I agree from the standpoint, you're not going to, I think your point about Morris is right from the standpoint you're going to win this game 31-28.
Yeah,
right. You're not going to win this game 16-13.
Average winning team in Pac-12 conference games scores 35 points as of today.
Yeah.
Got to score.
So Washington has just played 2 grind games at Arizona and Stanford. That's there's no way to me this is going to be that kind of game.
Yeah, I think Anthony Brown continues to grow. It'll be his stiffest test against the secondary. They bait you into so many things. It's going to be a challenge. Yep. But it'll be a good moment for that program. They can get a win. All right, Washington State. Who would have thought? Who would have thought they'd have a chance when you look at the standings in the Pac-12 North that there's Jake Dickert's crew, just like we predicted, right? They play Oregon. We know that. They have a bye week. I just think it's important to note them. He got his first win. They won't play this weekend, but they'll get to really prepare to play on the road at Autzen Stadium, fellas. Yeah. Ted, we talk about him a lot. I think we should give it some love.
No, most unheralded player in the conference. I said it Saturday, and I watched the first half of their game this weekend again. Jaden Delore. I mean, again, eyeball test. The first eyeball look may not be the most impressive. This guy competes. He's producing, and he's quarterbacking right now a winning team. And I just, we've talked a lot about Jaden Daniels, I think, with good reason, and some other quarterbacks in the conference. I feel like it's time Delore has to start getting into this conversation.
Yeah, I think we keep last week we talked about who's the second team quarterback because we went Jaden Daniels first team. You go back and you watch that game, and I'm not convinced of who my first team quarterback is right now, let alone the second. So we'll keep talking about that as we get rolling here. Michael, our game. It was cool. I talked to Mekhi Blackman today. Mekhi Blackman, whose name I'll say as many times as possible in the broadcast. My son's name is Mekhi, our baby. He's like, every game's must win. He goes, that's how we're looking at it. And they have to go bowling. We just got off the phone with him about an hour ago. And then Oregon State can clinch a bowl berth since what, 2013, first time?
13.
2013. Nate Landman, I'd anticipate him not going in this game. It didn't go last week. I don't know. Like on paper, this probably doesn't look like a sexy game, but as I've dug into it, I'm kind of pumped for this one, man.
Well, I think Oregon State needs to right the ship. Which is amazing because we felt like they have righted the ship this season, but all of a sudden they lose at Colorado, and I think they really need to. They need to get it done. I think without Landman, watching the first half, now Oregon's great, but the linebackers looked a little confused, and rightfully so, without Landman back there. So can Colorado right that? Because right now their defense looked incredibly susceptible to the run, and we know Oregon State's the best running team in this conference. So I think can Colorado stop the run or at least limit it? If not, I think Oregon State's going to be bowling, and that's a great story as it is. I want to circle back for 1 second. Washington State, Utah, 2 teams that have overcome so much, completely different circumstances, but just hats off to both these squads for what they've been able to overcome collectively, each of those teams. So anyway, I just want to throw that in. But I think the run is going to be the key to this game. And, I looking at the tape from last week, I think Oregon State's got the advantage because I think losing Landman, if he is out again, is going to be really difficult to overcome.
Can we give you a telly in the truck? Oh, there, Yogi, this guy's.
With Bill Walton, I have a telestrator, so he doesn't like to use a telly. So I do the Milli Vanilli telly with Bill. Sometimes it's pretty good.
No, but I think Michael's right on there. And that's something, we saw it. And we need to track this visually in this week's game because last Saturday at Berkeley, it was very simple. Oregon State has dominated teams by running the ball. They didn't. And then they didn't stop the run either, which is death. And Colorado hasn't been able to, sadly, really hasn't stopped anybody on defense this year. So there's your point. If Oregon State gets back to its 240 a game on the ground, I would imagine that's pretty elementary game plan.
So just a reminder for our game, guy who hasn't gone off, but is the reigning player of the year on offense, Jarek Broussard.
I think I heard that twice in 13 seconds in the Fox show last week.
Yeah. Does he?
Who's producing?
Does he have a moment? I'm really curious to watch
Yeah.
this because to Ted's point, Cal, who it's not like you look at them and you're like, wow, their offensive line has just moved people all year long. They move the ball. Does
Yeah.
Broussard and Fontenot get going? I mean, I know it's not sexy. It's not going to register many places, but as I've dug into this one, I'm pumped. All right, so who thinks Arizona gets the first
I'm
win?
going to tell
Sorry,
you one
Ted.
other thing real quick. All right. Name drop admitted, walked into the grocery store yesterday to pick up some things. Who's in line ahead of me? Jerry Rice. Proud dad. So it was nice to see Brendan Rice, of whom things have been expected. It was very nice to see Brendan Rice deliver both receiving and running back as a run back guy at Oregon. I hope that's the start, because that's what Colorado badly needs, is somebody to emerge as a playmaker on the outside.
Expect to see him featured in the open, by the way.
Yeah, tell Jerry if you see him
Jerry?
at Hans. Yeah.
If he shows up, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cal, Arizona. You talk playmakers, Ted? Jawari Joyner made a lot of plays. Not sure his status. I don't think he's going to go in this one. He threw for touchdown. He was all over the place. Does Arizona get one? What do we think? It's been a long time. I don't know the count, but it's been a minute.
Well, I'd like to think Arizona's going to find a way to get one. But I saw enough from Cal Saturday that if they take that anywhere close to that game with them to Tucson, three good running, three good productive running backs. Garber's playing a very good game, I thought, last Saturday. Arizona, again, sadly, they just haven't been able to stop anybody. And USC, I'm just going to throw a fact out there. USC had 550 yards and they get 41 points. And the best offensive player in the conference didn't play the second half. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure where Arizona is going to be able to summon up. And if they do, they'll win the game because they'll score. That we know Arizona will score a little bit, but I'm not sure they can stop enough.
Yeah. If Garbers plays anything close, still like he played last Saturday, I don't see Arizona getting their first win this weekend.
Yeah, I think if this was earlier in the year, I'd give Arizona a better shot than now. Cal is 3-5. They got to win to go bowling. This is a lot of guys that came back purposely. Now, some have been injured, right? But do they get Cam Good back in this game? We'll see. He didn't go last week. But a lot of guys like Josh Drayton and company, they came back for a bowl. I think they get this one. Before we get to SC, Arizona State, it's a Friday night game, right, for Stanford and Utah. Utah's going there. Stanford, as Ted referenced earlier, not a lot of people anticipated probably to be at this game. There weren't a lot last week. But they do anticipate Michael Wilson, my former intern, who I love, expected to possibly play. Bradley Arthur, chance. Probable is Ethan Bonner and Salim Turner Muhammad in the secondary. The problem is questionable. Tanner McKee. Big old questionable for Stanford. Stanford's hard to figure out, guys. Like Utah, I think they're rolling. It's a Friday game. Stanford's done weird stuff on Friday nights before, but I don't know. I see Utah rolling, but
yeah. So I'll give you a little bit quickly from my point from the Stanford side. The game I touched on the number a few minutes ago. This is last Saturday to me was the absolute confirmation. This is no longer, and we can't talk about Stanford in the present tense as we did Stanford in the past tense. It's just a completely different team. Stanford gets the ball back with 2 minutes to go in the game. They get one first down, they win the game, and they can't run the ball at all. They couldn't run the ball at all and had to punt back, and Washington goes down to win the game. Washington outrushes them 220-70, which means Stanford doesn't run the ball and doesn't stop the run. And that's a bad, as we all know, that's just not a healthy combination. So my thing that I was impressed by was after the game, David Shaw made a comment and he said, we're a better team than we're playing, than the way we're playing. We are a better team than the way we are playing. And it's on me. He said, it's on me. I need to find out why we're not playing up to the level that we should. And it was, to me, just spoke reams about who David Shaw is. And then I read Herm Edwards' comments after Arizona State's game, and Herm said, it's on the players. There's not going to be a new offense. It's on the players. And to me, I heard one coach who has spent most of his time in college and then one coach who has spent most of his time in the pros. And I heard to me, it was a college response and a pro response. And I just wanted to, to me, it's a major, I smiled when I read the comment, because that's exactly, if you're in Stanford football, you're angry because you're not the team that the way they've been playing. That's what you want to hear from your head coach.
I think you summed it up, pro versus college. And, how are the players going to respond to that? Stanford's lost. I mean, it's remarkable. Stanford's lost 3 in a row since beating Oregon.
Yeah.
And it's just, you would have thought they would have went that way. The team they're playing, Utah, to me, like we said, it's going to be, no one's going to be there. The energy is going to be low. Utah brings their own energy. So I think that's the advantage. Utah doesn't need anything. They love the muss. They thrive there. But I think Utah on the road brings their own energy. And I think Utah is going to roll in this one. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think Utah and Oregon are the 2 best teams in this league right now. And they're tracking. I wish they didn't play in the regular season, to be blunt. I really wish they didn't. But that's how it goes.
We call Greg Zanke and you can work that out. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, agreed. You referenced Herm's quotes. I went back and I read that too. And I was like, whoa, let me go watch this press conference. And I think in the words, it wasn't, as I listened to it, I didn't feel like he was like, straight up, it's the players' fault. They got to go win the game. And I'm not saying you intended it to mean that way, but I think that was the headline. It was like, whoa, called out the players. It's on the players. But as you listen to him, he was like, look, man, like we're not going to change anything. We have to get better. And I think we will. And our guys want to. It's not as though they've tanked or they've given up. So I think there was some context around that line that definitely made me relax a little bit after I saw it. With that said, this is the game I'm most anticipating all weekend long. And I get there's a lot of other games and stakes and stuff like that, because ASU, when we saw them in training camp, right? We all had them week 1. They won. What do you call it? The
airport test.
Tarmac, the airport test, right? Coming off the bus, they look the part.
Absolutely.
They look awesome. And they've had some injuries. They've had a boatload of drops. They haven't looked anywhere near, and more importantly, they haven't played the style of football we thought, which is clean, which is, consistent. So now they have SC coming to town. SC is in Los Angeles for everybody living under a rock. Arizona State recruits the daylights out of Lawrence, and Jaden Daniels and that entire roster can't raise up and have great focus and energy, because they didn't have it in the Washington State game. Herm called it out. You saw it when it was on, wherever you watched it. It was a bad game from their standpoint. Sloppy, ugly, tough to watch. They need to play, I'd say, their best game of the season, because I don't think they played their best, at least what we thought. Or are they just middle of the road? And I think that's what we're going to find out this weekend. I'm so anticipating that game. And we'll see what we see from the Trojans. Is it Jackson Dart? Does he get all the burn? I thought that was really interesting from what I read in the LA Times. Phils, I'd love your reaction too. Keaton Slovis said he found out Friday night that Jackson Dart was playing. I played sports for a long time. We've been around it for a long time. If I was a Heisman candidate and I found out Friday night that as a quarterback at USC, I was going to share reps, and I didn't earlier in the week, I don't know anything else other than what I read, I would be like, really? And that's kind of what he said. Those were his quotes. So there's a lot of drama in this game.
Well, I'll say 2 things. No offense, but he hasn't been playing like a Heisman candidate, so maybe he's lost a little bit of that.
Fair.
He's not a Heisman candidate,
right? So it's not. He doesn't deserve the notification that somebody who's been playing a little better. But my one stat that jumped out at me from the stats train on ASU, because I gotta give a little love to the stats train. Last 3 games, they've averaged 23 points a game, ASU, 1 touchdown in the second half in the last 3 games. Yeah. So,
and I'll just
go ahead, Ted.
I'll just throw in, and USC side, obviously we've already hashed through what this is a horrible year for them, given the disruption with the coach change and Clay Helton getting a job today, by the way. So anyway, that will play itself out. But from the ASU side, I would ask this, guys. Start with you, Yogi. Just put the 12 rosters of the Pac-12 schools out there and tell a coach who's coming in, Bob Stoops, I'm going to bring you in to pick a team to coach in this league. Which roster would he take first?
Oregon.
Which roster would he take second?
ASU.
Thank you. That would be my answer. And I'm not a coach, but that would be my answer. So that's why I'm coming from. I'm a big believer in this. It's my own personal thing that I've seen in other sports, in major leagues, professional sports. How well a team plays is not a coach's responsibility. Guy drops passes, can't block, whatever. The coach ultimately is responsible is then to find somebody who can, but that's not the coach's responsibility. How a team plays is. And the way Arizona State played Saturday, that's Herm Edwards has to own that. And his teams have to be better. I mean, they don't have to win, but they have to play the right way starting against USC this Saturday. That was, to me, I couldn't even watch the second half because the first half was so bad. And if I'm an Arizona State person, I understand the players have all come out rallying in favor of Herm, which is great. That's a wonderful thing to hear. Now play that way, because all we can do is judge off what we see, right? We're not in the huddle. We're not in the locker room. So we don't know, but we can judge off what we see. And that's kind of how this world works. And what we saw Saturday was nowhere near acceptable.
Agreed. Agree with that. Okay. Before we get to the humanity moment, UCLA, it's a big story right now in LA. Just the program, right? Like, Oregon game was awesome. Didn't finish it. Utah game, backup quarterback, looked admirable. I think Ethan Garbage is the future there. There's going to be a lot that goes on here over the next month. You look at recruiting. Recruiting's going to come up fast. Signing day is the middle of December. I don't know, guys. I really don't know how the league's going to shake out over the last month, but I do think there are a boatload of storylines, and UCLA football is one of them.
Well, I'll the elephant in the room I'll take care of. Being here in LA, there are the lead reporter is calling for Coach Kelly's job essentially in the Los Angeles Times, and I've been around Chip Kelly for 15 years in various places and interact with him. Ted has as well. Unless he respects you, Chip Kelly is not really that cordial with many in the media. And when the chips are down, that's not going to help you. So I think that's where we are right now in LA in that situation. And, Ted said, so I don't think the beat reporter gets to decide if someone's going to stay or not, but the beat reporter is definitely feeling like it's time. So that's the story.
Yeah. And you know what, on that note, I think when I look at UCLA and we're going to have them in Colorado coming off their bye week, I think they got a chance to win their last three. So we'll see, to the point of like narrative headlines one day, realities 3-4 weeks from now. Who knows? It'll all shake out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they start winning, they'll love you. You know how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Ted.
No, and I just, the one thing I think about UCLA, and I think you're right, that they have winnable games down the stretch, and I think they need to. That's obvious. We were talking a lot about the defense at the beginning of the year, and we're not talking about the defense now. And I think the tactic that we're seeing, and it was really run beautifully by Michigan State against Michigan, it drove Jim Harbaugh crazy, is offensive teams are running tempo. And as a result, they're preventing defensive teams from substituting. Michigan's defensive coordinator was not very well schooled in this. And Michigan got multiple delay of game penalties. They had multiple plays where the defense didn't line up. And Harbaugh kind of called out his own defensive coordinator about it afterwards. The point being, we're seeing it now. And directors are missing plays, as we saw in the Colorado-Oregon telecast. They were missing plays because they're trying to replay when teams are running tempo. We go back to Chip Kelly 10 years ago, right? We all had to get, Michael and your crews all had to get used to this when Chip introduced that rapid fire pace of play. And I've got to believe teams are going to continue to do this to UCLA, right? To stop UCLA from subbing six, as they try to do, run waves of fresh bodies out there.
That's where the previous play began. cue it up, and after the next
Yeah.
play, run the play you just saw, because you're not going to have time to cue it up and run it. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Exactly.
Yogi, are we going to do humanity here?
We're going right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Before though, go ahead. Get something
Yeah.
before we.
I was going to say, Yogi and I, we should just do a very, very quick, I promise here, quick before Michael's moment, because I want to step on Michael's moment. But a wonderful a friend of ours passed away this past week, Jim Gillis. Nobody knows who Jim is, so I'll tell you very briefly. Jim's 94 years old. He was an All-American baseball player at the incredible baseball factory called Notre Dame. And Jim ended up playing pro ball. He went and served in the FBI for, I believe, a decade. Ended up getting into the broadcast business and eventually became California's representative on the Heisman Trophy Committee. And he's the guy that eventually kind of coerced me to take a Heisman vote a long time ago. And then some years back, I called him and I said I had somebody who I thought was really right, should have a Heisman vote. And then Akbar Baja Gamila went on that game show, so I lost him. So I said, what about Yogi? How about that? And Yogi got a Heisman vote. And I had a wonderful time. I spent probably a couple hours with Jim and his wife just before weeks before COVID, in their home here in the Bay Area. Just the nicest person. So yeah, because he was so really passionately devoted to the Heisman cause, I think. And Yogi, you've had a chance to get to know Jim too. Just a little quick shout out. That glad to have known you, Jim.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time I get a random call from a number wasn't on my phone. I was on Nike's campus for the Elite 11, and it's Jim Gillis. And he calls me and he says, hey, Ted Robinson and I have talked. He's advocated tremendously for you. I've asked around about you, and I'd like to offer you a Heisman vote. And I'll remember that moment forever. And then the subsequent check-ins, and I'm not great, I'm definitely not as good as Jim at this, but I hope to one day be that way, where he would just call randomly, hey, how you doing? How's life? How's the season? You still living in the, how's California? Just a class act of a human. And Ted, I thank you, because you introduced me to him, man. And much love to his family, as I know it's a big loss. And to anybody in California who has a Heisman vote, you know who Jim Gillis is.
The call without the agenda, a lost art form, by the way.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. All right. So before we get into our humanity moment of the week, I want to make sure I let you know about the Field of 12 Media. It's a brand new podcast and digital media network covering college football by people that know it best. It's brought to you by Shoot Your Shot Productions, the folks behind the Field of 68. The Field of 12, the sweet t-shirts, we just got them, gives you insight into the game we all love by people who have lived it. Trevor Knight and Bryce Petty, I'm sure they're up in arms about Oklahoma and their ranking in the CFP and the Big 12. Joshua Perry, Christian Hackenberg covering the Big 10. Sorry, fellas, Ohio State's going to sit right behind Oregon. Max Stark, Clint Sterner own the SEC. We'll see if Bama does, no matter how many losses they have, if they continue to go to the playoff. We got Harry Douglas and Cody Sensabaugh on the ACC and your 25th ranked Pitt Panthers. And of course, we'll be here every week. We got you covered in the Pac-12. Check out all the links below to find the rest of our shows, the Field of 12, where college football happens. Michael, take it away.
Akbar Bajabiamila, by the way, my guy. And trying to follow a TED impromptu humanity moment is like going on after Sinatra leaves the stage. So this should be great. So anyway, the question I love to ask on Fridays, what do you want to do when football's done? So we were at Cal on Friday, and Chase Garber said investment banking, Luke Beckett, commercial real estate, Elijah Hicks, continue to do his charity work to feed the needy and be a venture capitalist, which I thought was pretty cool. But the surprise guest of the day there was Mike Safell, who medically retired, and he was Cal's center, but medically retired in the offseason. And he entertained everybody. If you saw the tailgate, he was on that. We mic'd him up during the game. He showed up on the post-game show. And, what a surprise. In Edison High School, great TV, Mr. Glenn Parker. But anyway, his answer to us was, I'm going to cop out on this one and say what my high school coach always said. It doesn't matter what you do. It's just, you got to be a good husband and a good dad. And it's funny that his non-answer, I thought, was one of the best ones of I've heard it forever. Those of us who cover sports and have families, Yogi, you're kind of learning this now. It's really difficult to carry out those tasks while you're on the road on the weekends. You're gone on long trips. And I think finally the consuming nature of never knowing when you're prepared enough. And I think you got to adapt and kind of develop that. So anyway, 6 hours after Safel made the statement, I was reminded how difficult being a parent can be. My daughter was supposed to be next door at 6:15 to babysit. My wife called me and said, I don't know where she is. And basically, I'm at work. My younger daughter's at ballet. So my task from 300 miles away, fix the problem. So as time passed, the parental roller coaster of anger turned to worry and then guilt about being angry. But anyway, as that went on, I checked my phone in just under 90 minutes. I made 43 phone calls, but finally everything was resolved. As luck would have it, Kate was asleep in the backyard, studying till 2 a.m. and getting up at 6 a.m. for a science lab will do that to you. But anyway, then I took the flight home the next day after the game. I walked into the house about midnight and Kate was up. And I thought, I want to tell her about being responsible, about setting the alarm and what she put me through. But instead of giving her a long lecture, I gave her a long hug. And I knew that's what she needed. And more importantly, that's what I needed. So Mike Safel, it wasn't a cop-out at all. The ultimate challenge, whatever career you choose, while prioritizing being a successful partner and parent, is the toughest job you're ever going to have. The secret to success, like all three of us did, choose wisely. Find a strong partner who can help you navigate the journey. They need to be your number one supporter, but more importantly, at times, your number one critic. So as I end my humanity moment, as we should always do, let's say thanks to our angels of mercy, Mary, Amy, and Melanie. And by the way, this dad's got to go finish dinner and get someone to ballet. So Yogi, take us out.
Way to go. That's
Well
Michael. That's well done.
said.
I hope, Michael, that someday you become as good a producer as you are a father.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate it.
There it is. College football playoff humanity moment of the week. I got to go back and listen to them all. Hayden, we need to put them all in one podcast at the end of the year. I don't know where my favorite one is. It's usually the most recent one, so this one rises to the top. Ted, I can't wait to see you in Boulder. Michael, stay safe with the fam. Hayden, thanks for producing it. And for all of us here, you know the deal. Pac-12 football, college football playoffs, start getting used to that dialogue.